Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk extensively about how I made the Rohan theme. So I will first cover the audio part and then I go to talk about the video part on the other software. And so it's probably going to be a very long video because there is a lot of things to be discussed and that I want to show you. So just as always navigate the video with the chapters below. And so the Rohan theme. So obviously the Lord of the Ring, it's almost sacred to me. It's one of the most influential piece of art of my life for obvious reason. Both in terms of cinematography than in the way it's written and the music by Howard Shore. Obviously, it's like very influential for me. So it's why I waited a long time before even trying to do covers or to work on the original materials, because it's I wanted to make sure that I had developed enough skills to be able to do it properly, and even now it was a kind of a complicated production. You are going to see that in a moment. So the Rohan theme. So first thing I did. The ERHU, it's not an instrument that can play any melodies. Like you can do a cover of every song. Like it's very limited, and so the Rohan theme, if you take only I would say the main part, it will be this theme. So if you only take these parts, the video will be too short or too simple. But the problem is that around this part in the original soundtrack, you mostly have like ambient, texture or things that are not really playable on an ERHU. So what I did is I went through the original soundtrack and I did some sound editing, so or some editing work, I would say. So for example, this is the initial demo. And so at first you got some parts from, small melodies here. So I think, yeah, this one comes from it's called the King of the Golden Hall. You can read that here. And right after that, we cut to the Riders of Rohan, which is the main Rohan theme. So you can see that I did the cut here. Then I cut to the other part because originally I think it was, so there were some other ambient parts exactly like that were not going to work well with the ERHU. So I just did some kind of taking some part from songs and then cutting it to other parts. And the most memorable example will be the last part, which is called originally Fourth Eolingas, which is that theme. Just tremendous scene. Probably my favorite musical to image beat in the three movies. So amazing that scene, but I really wanted to incorporate this part because the voice of the boy, the soprano, it will play very well on the ERHU. So yeah, I wanted to incorporate that, and so I did the transition. I think yeah. So you got this part. No, it's before that. You got this part. So this is the Riders of Rohan. Then we raise, and there I made the original cuts because I think they were resting on a minor chord originally. So you had that, and then you rest. Yeah, exactly. So you rest here, and so I did the cut here to the main theme. also wanted to include. So yeah, first thing is that this step, sometimes it takes a long time because I really want to make sure to have the correct adjustments that will work both for the instruments and for the video especially. Like if you got too much ambient parts, it's very hard to produce a video because you need a lot of ambient shots. And when we did the Riders of Rohan, we were just out of Departure to the West by Joe Hisaishi, and it was exactly that problem, like a lot of ambient parts, so it was difficult to film and to imagine, so yeah, I wanted to do that. And sometimes you see I don't hesitate to change the pitch of the original, so this last part originally it's not in that tonality, it's lower, and I took it. So, and yeah, I raised it. So sometimes there are much more intense change to the original parts because I want to make sure that it's playable on the ERHU. Again, the ERHU is very limited as an instrument. So yeah, this was my first part. It's also at this stage that I start to plan basically when I'm going to play and when I'm going to let Victor, the violinist, take the lead. So, by the way, I knew right from the start that I wanted to have Victor on this one. Obviously, the Rohan theme, I wanted to have his violin to play the main part. So yeah, I basically had a rough idea, so I wanted to let him play the first part. Not this one, because this would have been very hard to play on the ERHU, but on the violin it's much easier to play. And so yeah, I knew that after that I wanted to take the next part, this one. And then we have the duet on the theme here. Basically the main course, I would say. And lastly, I knew that main theme. Then I take the lead again for the solo. And finally, we do the epic finale with duet again. So yeah, so this was this first part. It's almost half the battle, I would say, because it's if you take your time to make a correct plan and really plan for things and just do your transition correctly and everything, it really makes the production that come afterward much easier. Also, once I get the demo, so you see this will be the demo, and you can see here on top there is a lot of little numbers, so these are the tempo. And so what I do after that is that I remap the tempo. So you see it starts fast, here, 167, and then it starts to slow down here, to finally settle, at another pace, and then it pick up again, and you see there are lots of small intricate change. So here, for example, this phrase, it needs to kind of come like slightly late, slightly at a slower pace. So if I take it back here, it's kind of fast. And yeah, so if you do not do that, it's harder to program with the orchestra afterward. So this part with the tempo is something that I do a lot of intricate tempo work, just to better prepare the programmation and to better emulate the natural interpretation of an orchestra. If you listen to most orchestra, they really sometimes rush, sometimes they drag, and it's a very important part of the I will call it I don't know if it's a word in English, but vivacity or just agility of the sound. It's like a lot of emotion come from that. So yeah, once I got that, so at this point I would have had the demo with all the tempo, and then I can start doing the programmation. So very quick explanation for those of you who do not know about orchestral programming. So at some point, people started to do what we call to sample instruments. So for example, they would take a horn section, and they would record every note of every every note of every intensity on the horns. Then you program it in a what we call a library, and then you can reprogram the horns note by note and intensity by intensity by choosing, basically telling them with the computer what sample you want to be played. It's a very poor explanation, but basically that means that with a program like this one, this is a sample library, I can take my keyboard and probably just play a note. So basically, you can have access to very high quality instruments like that. And so what people like me do is that we do what we call orchestra mockups. So we take a lot of this library, and then we program it together, and in the end we get a kind of mock-up of an orchestra, and this allows us to kind of not have to pay like 10,000 euros for days of orchestra recording basically this allows us to do orchestral music just from a computer. Obviously, it's nowhere close to a real orchestra. It's like it's really we call that a mock-up, but it's getting better and better. So you can still have a nice rendition. Even if it's all artificial. So for example, this will be the strings. So you see, every single line, it's a programmation. For example, this will be the violin, and I program the notes of the violin here. And the curve you see here will be the different other controls. Like this one will be the volume, but this one below will be the intensity. And I can even ask them to change the way they do vibrato with this one. And so, yeah, by taking a very long time to program each and every one, so this will be the violin, this will be the viola, this will be cello right below that, and by taking time to program all of that, in the end you can have what we call an orchestral mockup. So yeah, let me take you through the different sections so I can better explain. So let me take you through the strings. So the string. Depending on the part, so this is the first part, and it's like really it's where the string section it's like a string heavy part, I would say. So yeah, the thing that struck me the most when I was working on that is the simpleness. I don't know if that we say that in English, but the instrumentation or orchestration of overture is very simple. Like it's only like a fifth, just bass chords without extended chord. Or right before that, I was working on Departure to the West, as I said, and the way Howard Shore, for example, did The Lord of the Rings. It's kind of simple in comparison to, for example, the harmonies of Joe Hisaishi. And I think it's what gives The Lord of the Rings this kind of, I would say, legendary, archaic, historic feeling, I would say. It's because it's fairly brutish, we could say, simple in the way it's made, but it just works so great in the end. So, yeah, string section, nothing out of the ordinary. Like, yeah, you see very flat, no extended chord, just always root, fifth, octave, very simple. And so maybe the only thing I did is that I tried to emulate that simpleness by programming the vibrato. So this curve control vibrato, and I tried to have some chord or notes play with much less vibrato than usual. So it's a good example here. Very still. This will be during my ERHU solo. And so, very to try to convey this very not lively, very simple way of simple kind of tone for the string. So try to play a lot with vibrato in some parts, but apart from that, not a lot to say. Maybe you got the last part that is also very intense, but so this part. Yeah, apart from classic curve work, just setting ton of curve and just working them over and over to make sure that you got the right feeling, the right intensity everywhere. It was kind of simple, really, in comparison to some like to John Williams when I did the Star Wars cover, or as I said, Joe Hisaishi, the harmony were fairly simple. I mean, if you even look at them, it's really fifth all the time, just the melodies. It's fairly simple way to orchestrate and yes, maybe only hard part was as always, since you got string section. But then we are going to add the ERHU and the violin. So there was a lot of back and forth between the intensity of especially the lead violin, this one, because I just wanted them to support the lead melodies and not take the lead like it was originally made, like especially at the end, this part. So originally, for the four Fingers part, the first violin section it takes the lead, but for my version it was me and Victor that was playing the lead, so it was the only struggle. But apart from that, fairly simple. Something worth of interest was maybe I used a stack of basses. So I got one here, then I got another libs, but this time it's a solo bass. I don't really remember why I did that, maybe, and then another one. No, this one isn't playing anything, sorry. No, it is. Yeah, I don't really know why I did that, but it probably to get a different texture. Yes, so there is a sub here, but I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the mixing. So, much more work. The work was much harder on the brass section, obviously. So, let me take you through the main part around here. So the thing that I struggle the most with brass is that you got this transition with brass when they start to crack. Let's call it like that way, like if I were to change that, like if I take the intensity and I put it to maximum, you know, yeah, like that, like it really start to have a lot of bright frequency and things like that, and I always struggle to like ride that limit. Like it's either it's too dark or either it's too aggressive, and this is why you truly see the limitation of obviously of using sample library instead of real players. And it was what I struggled the most with it, because obviously the theme it's carried by this kind of like step, you know, ta da dun 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 dun, and you get this kind of first level, second level, and third level, and it was especially hard to get with programming brass. So in the end, what I ended up going after was the brass arrangement. It's kind of more brutish, more forceful. It's less refined than in the original. Like the original these parts. They are much more, I would say, relaxed than what I got here. They are much more elegant, I would say. It's much more ambient, and I kind of had no choice but to go a bit more to make sure that the weight of the horns was really raising the song, and that you were really feeling the emotion of the waves like that. So it was a very hard struggle, especially when put with the string, because you got a lot of things going on. Like this will be the strings, this will be the brass under that. So a lot of things together. So it's kind of. It was a lot of back and forth between the brass section, and then I change the string section, and then I come back again and again and again to make sure that it was really the brass that were carrying the power and not the string. Some things that I used on this one was short dubs, like you every time you got a lead brass, like the horns, they are dubbed by a short version of the melody. So together you get the kind of sharp beginning. So I would say most of the time in programmation was done with the brass. So you can just see with the amount of curves. First the section is quite complicated with a lot of different horns to program. Then you got the programmation itself with the timing and everything on the notes. Then you got the curve for volume here. Then you got the curve for intensity here. Then you got additional volume curves on top of that. Then section volume curve on top of that. And then you got the mixing. So it's yeah, the brass, but I was expecting the brass to be exceptionally complicated for the Rohan theme, so yeah, it was expected, I would say. Okay, but yeah, in the end, the result is kind of it's kind of more congested and less refined than what I was hoping for. Okay, and so on top of that, basically strings and brass for this song was like 80–90% of the programmation, or hard programmation, I would say. After that, you get some voices for the end. So for the last part. A lot of stuff, and then you got some percussion. Obviously, not some percussion, a lot of percussion. Actually, it was quite a lot of work as well, especially so you got all the gong, cymbal, and stuff like that. You know, all this kind of thing everywhere. It's a lot of track, but it's just a way that I organize my thing. But it's not. I could have done much simpler than that, but. It's no big deal. Just cymbals, gongs. It won't make or break a song. Yeah. And in terms of percussion, the hard part was the timpanis. Obviously, a lot of timpanis in especially the second movie and the third movie. The third, especially, I love what Howard Shaw did with the timpani in the third movie. But timpani, yeah, a lot of roll everywhere. Always some kind, yeah, of roll. Very large, very heavy rolls like that, just to get that sense of epicness always in the background. You know? I really love this kind of arrangements with always a timpani roll or you know, just rumble behind. I really love the vibe it gives to the song. And yes, some kind of woodwinds at some point. Oh yeah, this little motif here. So about woodwinds, I am sure there was more, especially in the main theme. I don't heard them when I was recreating the orchestra, but usually I'm sure there are more of them in the latter part as well. But I didn't want to complexify the production too much, because the brass and the strings at this point had already took like maybe like 20 or 30 hours of programmation. So I was already kind of getting not exhausted, but starting to get tired by the song. And so at this point, it's better not to complexify too much and just work within the confine of what you can do. Like, it's not a real orchestra, it's a mock-up orchestra, and then I'm going to add some weird instrument on top of that. So yeah, I did not go too far with the woodwinds, but I knew that I wanted to have them on this little part to do the transition. Yeah, so it's not much, but it's always funny. And last bit of percussion at the beginning. Just some bit of epic percussion just to have the introduction. Yeah, nothing, not a lot of thing. What is that? So some string texture. It's a thing that I do a lot. It's just additional texture. Just to make things, when I can and when it's not, creating imbalance in the production or in my the way I organize things in my head when I work on that, I like to add this kind of texture. Like it won't change a lot, but it makes the production slightly more unique. Yeah, just little texture there and there. So yeah. Production of the Mockup Orchestra was really done during the brass and string. Like this is most of it is in the brass and string. But yeah, usually yeah, it's very hard to work on this kind of like very cluttered song, like with a lot of things, because when you hear these melodies and all the orchestra all day long to program it, it can get very tiring. So you need to really really take your time to progress at it. So it was most of the difficulty. And so now let me talk about the ERHU and the violin. So as I said, I knew what I wanted to do, kind of. Only thing that maybe changed is that I planned to play that first part by Victor here. Yeah, so I wanted to play that first part on the violin, but it wasn't on the ERHU, sorry, but it wasn't working, so I gave it to Victor instead. So this is the violin part, and those are the ERHU parts here. All of that. Yeah. So again, it's the Rohan theme. Like if you take a section of brass and you try to blend it with an ERHU, it's really not a good match. So I knew right from the start that I needed to be smart with the way I introduce the ERHU for that theme. Like if I were just to play it from the beginning to the end, it will be boring and kind of weird. So what I did is I made some space for me as a lead. I only took two parts. This one. Where I could really express my kind of ERHU sound with the very ambient and reverb heavy style, and I took the only other part was this one. Which I knew was going to work well. Because it's I tried to play it already and it was just going well. So, but the main theme, so all this part, I knew that I wasn't going to put the ERHU in the front or just. I knew that the ERHU was going to have more of an ambient role. And so, what I did is I counted on Victor a lot to really take the lead, because on the violin it's much easier to take the lead on the song from start to finish. So yeah, so for the recording, I wanted to try to push both the ERHU and the violin as much as in the front as possible, like as lead instrument. So what I did is I recorded it using a very close microphone. So this is the original. Yeah, so this is the original sound, and as you can see, it's very like very close. No, I think that maybe I would have done differently and try to go for slightly different microphone setup, but in the end it worked well in the context of the mix. Something else that was very important for me was that the performance, especially on this theme, I really like ask Victor to really attack the string. Like you can hear sometime, I even ask him, I even choose some parts, maybe this one. Yeah. So you hear sometimes you hear you hear two string because he's so he's biting into the string so much that he's touching the other string, and this was something that I really liked because it made it more wild and more groovy, I would say. You see all these parts. All these little mordant like that or thing like this. I think we got one here. Yeah. All this kind of thing. It's like it's not in the original. The original is much more played in a more relaxed way, like kind of like the horns. But I knew that I wanted to push things for our version, especially like this first part, this one. So on this part, the part is played by playing one open string, and you play the melody on the other one. And so I think we recorded this little section at least 30 times, just to because I wanted the more like lively version possible of this little entrance. Like I asked him to really go hard, really make things move with the melody. So we have a lot of movement, and I really love the way he played it. And in the end, I really loved his little bit. So nice. And yeah, it's the way he just. The way he just cut into the production, like it's really the perfect entrance for the video. So yeah, we did a lot of tracking on that, but it was kind of the same for all these parts. Like the Rohan theme, it's like it's a legendary theme that many people know. So we really spare no effort in recording to make sure that it was like really the best version of what we could do. At least I think we spent at least 8 hours to record the song by studying, redoing things, a lot of things. At least 8 hours. We finished very late in the night, and it's why I like working with musicians like Victor. Over the years, I've been more and more careful about the people I work with, because I really like to push things in studio. And not many people or musicians can I will say, not just take it, but just not many musicians enjoy it. But Victor is that kind of musician that knows that why this is important and why we need to really print the best version of ourselves when we do this kind of music. So it was a great session with Victor as always, and he's a musician. Victor is really. It will need a lot for him to be tired when in a recording session. Really, he has a lot of energy, so it's nice. And yeah, so also the last part was insanely difficult to track, because originally this part last part, it's like it's extremely high even for a violin. Like he was almost at the limit, I think, or he was at the limit. So at this point, the strings start to be further away from the wood of the violin. So you really have to dig your finger into the string. So when you like play these parts in studio, like again we must have done at least 20 tries. You are really cutting your finger, because you need to do a lot of vibrato like that. So even for a very well trained, classically trained musician like Victor, this part was physically very hard to track, to record. So yeah, I remember this part very well. So just hear this the pitch here. Yes. Yeah, so at this point it's so high and it's so piercing. It's also exhausting for the ear. So it's a kind of of parts where you can't spend like one or 2 hours on it. Like you need to punch it through, and Victor was the right musician to record this kind of these parts. I really love the end result on that. So for the ERHU, for the ERHU, what is there to say? So the hardest thing for the ERHU was the voicing. Like if you take the main theme, the ERHU, it's not an instrument that is made to play really long sustain note like that. You can really hold the notes like at a certain level, at a good level, for a long time. And usually the louder you want the notes, the shorter you have to play it. So especially some part like this one. So the hard part like that, you can't play the ta da tam pam pam. You can have that level of voicing, you know, because it's too weird to play on the ERHU, especially that crescendo here. You're supposed to kind of play this note like in a crescendo. It's really uncomfortable to play on the ERHU. So what I did was I put the ERHU more in the back, very like natural, dark sounding ERHU. And I asked Victor to complete by doing things like that. Or just ask Victor to do a better voicing than what I was able to do with the ERHU. And you got the problem elsewhere, I think. Not here, but yeah, yes. But basically, as always, the hard part was mostly the voicing on the ERHU. It's hard to hold the crescendo at the right length. Or another example will be this one. So yeah, this kind of note, it's too long to hold it in one bowing. Rhythm, as always, it's what is the hardest to play on the ERHU. So the ERHU, for the recording, I also did the same kind of thing, like very close microphone, but in the end I did not put the ERHU too much in front, because to preserve as much as I could the epicness of you know, like with a lot of reverb, and it worked better when I was putting it with a more darker sound, and I think it worked well that way. But yeah, doing the ERHU and the violin was also kind of a very difficult, technically difficult thing to do. So yeah, about mixing. So about mixing, again, there is a lot of weird thing that is going on. That first thing is that if you take brasses like that, you know, a song that has this brass that are carrying the melody like that, and you try to add an ERHU on top of that, it's just right from the start, it's a bad idea. It's not a great idea, because the ERHU, it's an instrument that is very mellow, and if the background is a ton of huge brass that take a lot of space, I mean, if you just listen at the string and brass here, it's like it's really like full and heavy right from the start, and so adding the ERHU on top of that, you're going to probably have an imbalanced arrangement. The problem was that it will be solvable in the mix, but what you will need to do, you will need to kind of make space for it. Like you will need to kind of EQ your brass in a bit more, I would say, you know, just remove some weight. We need to remove low frequency on the brass, just, you know, do all sort of things that was in my that were in my eyes just destroying the original feeling of the song. Like the Rohan, it's all about this kind of push of the brass, and it has to be carried by the brass. So in the end, what I did with the mix was, instead of cutting things too much and just degrading the brass, something like that, I let the mix be kind of low and heavy, like kind of be imbalanced. Like my bet was to kind of assume that that thing and just make the mix that way. And when I was listening to the final results, when I was just listening to the audio, I was having second thought about that a lot, actually. Like I was fearful that people might find it too dark, not clear enough, not impacting enough. But when I added the audio to the video, I think it was where it all made sense. Like with the video, you may not have the best clarity, but you have the best ambience and the best emotion along the video. You know, like it is very very wide feeling, very big and heavy feeling of the orchestra and the reverb and all of that. So in the end, I'm satisfied. But every time I revisit the mix, like today, I got this little stress. Did I went too far? You know, at some point. I mean, if I check just listening to the last parts by itself, like without listening to the part before, it's so cluttered. Just listen to that. It's like everything is played on top of each other, and things are kind of blurry, and you see you can't really hear well the ERHU or the violin. But honestly, it wasn't the goal. The goal was more to create some kind of a big texture, some kind of a big texture of orchestra and violin blending together. So yes, that was my goal. So if I just show you more technicality about the mix, why did I do so? This will be for the violin. Nothing out of the ordinary, I would say. Maybe what did I did on the bass? Yeah, just a lot of control, but not that much. yeah, maybe something interesting would be that at some point I was afraid of the wave of low mid from the combination of brass and strings, like this part. Yeah, I tried to, you know, come and do the equivalent of like do more control, you know, at some frequency. But in the end, I preferred to let things be more chaotic and just like not in a way not properly cleaned or not properly controlled, just to let the orchestra do its thing, you know. Like if they want to play very loud and that it just suddenly become a lot of energy, I was fine with that. My goal was really to keep things more lively especially. Yeah, so as always, the double bass, there is a sub going on. So if you check only the low end, it's a thing that I do on almost every production. Like you got the double bass, but then you got a sub that is kind of stabilizing thing and making things even more like full. And at some point, you really got a droning full bass. Like if I take the bass at the end. This is bass with a sub. A lot of things going on. So on top of that, you got the timpani and everything. Obviously, I use a lot of reverb on the orchestra as well. So these are the 3 reverb I use. A lot of reverb everywhere. And again, very cluttered reverb, very not really defined, and yeah, again, maybe I went too far with that, but yeah, really shows the direction I went for. So master EQ on the orchestra. So you see, at some point I cleaned too much of low end, and I wanted to add more low end to a production that already has a lot of low end, but maybe I listened to the results. And I thought, okay, this isn't extreme enough in that direction I wanted to go in. Like it wasn't heavy enough, wasn't cluttered enough, and so I did this kind of stuff. Just to, you know, there is enough low mid, but just so that the low mid and low end come and really ride that line where it starts to get too much, but just slightly too much. So yeah, you feel something more just in the idea of gaining a little bit of sensation, I would say. So I'm more and more prudent about you know, stereo spacing. Because again, it's like sometimes I hear productions that are so spaced that the sound lose all of its punching power, you know, in the middle. So I tend to be to not go too far with the stereo image. But I think this production especially was kind of big on the imaging already. But it's a thing I'm changing a lot. Over the year. So for violin and ERHU, you can see, obviously, this is why I kind of regret the very close microphone for the recording, because it forced me to do a lot of EQ in correction, and this is way too much. So this will indicate that probably the microphone setup could have been better. yeah, so I was having a lot of resonant frequency, weird stuff happening, and not enough weight for the violin and the ERHU, so I had to compensate a lot, and yeah. Also, this kind of extreme EQ, it's like it's another sign that the initial arrangement and idea of adding ERHU and violin to do a cover of an already cluttered orchestral work was kind of extreme at first. Like if the arrangement is more stable, you don't need to do this kind of stuff. Lot of reverb as well on the violin. The ERHU. So the ERHU, again, I went very far to have a very dark sound when it was played with a violin. So see a lot of. So it's always hard to kind of rip through the frequency of your instrument that you play like that. But in the end, it's all about the initial goal, initial plans. I wanted the ERHU for this part to take the back seat and let the violin express the main energy. So yeah, I think it was the right call in the end. So for the last part, for Violin gas, there is. So yeah, the ERHU, it's much more, slightly more bright, but still with a lot of reverb to keep it very ambient. And this one, the first solo I did. Yeah, it's mixed. It's very ambient, but the mix it's less destructive, I would say, on the ERHU itself. The reverb is very important, so if I remove the reverb and I play that again, it's just not the same, you know. It's like by itself it could work, in a room by itself it could work, but when you put it against all this brass and orchestra and stuff like that, you need to add a lot of it's a missing link sometimes between the more heavier stuff and the ERHU. It's like the reverb, it fills that role. So yeah, so yeah. In conclusion, this kind of production, it's like it defines the way I do things as a producer. Like I do not go for the most technically optimized way of doing things, but I always sacrifice technicality and technicity to the benefits, to the perceived benefits of better emotion, better emotional impact. Yeah, it's really in that order for me. So most of my mixes, this one, it's really a clear example, will not be approved by some of my peers, obviously. like there is too much of everything, but when I listen to the final product, with the video especially, I think I made the choice I wanted to make. Maybe not the right one, but the one I wanted to make. And it's what I would advise to any sound engineer or producer. It's like, try to be unique before going for the technical sound options. Like, and I would say that I know a lot of sound engineers that are way too technical and that just don't see the emotion anymore in their music. So yeah, this song, the way I produced it, it's really my philosophy when it comes to mixing and producing. Okay, so let me just hear the last part again. really come the music come out and come find you. It's really what I wanted, so it's nice. So yeah, to conclude on that, I think audio part took me. We did like 2 or 3 days of recordings for my ERHU and the violin at least, and it took me at least 50 hours of, maybe more, 60 hours of programmation and mixing and production to do it well. And it took me, I did that, I think, over the course of 1 month, I would say. So yeah, really proud of this one. Let's talk about the video now. It's if the video is it's going to be very long, but I want to talk about that as well. So let me switch over to DaVinci Resolve. So yeah, very nice nice tone of a range, and very like deep, vibrant color grade and cinematography. So again, I kind of knew that I wanted this kind of color grade and cinematography, but at first I did not settle for a color grade that is so like orange. First I tried to take references in the movie, you know, original movie, which were much more gray, but it wasn't working for shots, and especially it was too hard to harmonize my parts with Victor parts. So this was filmed it's a place called the Charmençon. It's near the second highest point of Chartreuse, if I recall correctly. So Chartreuse, it's a big mountain group just near my city. One of the big mountain group. We have a lot of mountain around here, and so so if you see on this image, for example, my home is just Grenoble. It's just here. Like we can see it because of the atmosphere, but it's right here. So we can come like to here in like by road, and then it's a very small walk. So so during when we are filming that, we film during the first part of the day. We were literally at the opposite side of the valley here, at another location called Prémol, and we filmed the Concerning Hobbits cover right here. So with Victor, it was the second video of the day we were filming. I filmed him on that day along with Sylvain, and yeah, we just came from here, drive all the way to here, and then we were filming the Rohan film. So so yeah, my part were filmed like a few days before, and it was less work than the part of Victor. Like the Rohan film was really carried by Victor performance, and I knew I wanted this to be the way, because yeah, it's I mean it's a really violin centric song, so yeah, it made sense, and for the video as well it made sense. So yeah, yeah, for the shots, basically we did what we do kind of all the time. For my part, we were very close to sundown, so we had to rush things up. It's why on especially this shot we had only one try, and so you see the flare here. That's maybe too intense to my liking, but I wasn't. I had no other option but to put this one. But I really like the shot. Apart from that, so yeah, for my parts, I was kind of limited. But in the end, I think the shot worked well, especially this one. It's my favorite. So this one was done with, we have a lens that is 135 millimeter of focal length. So it's really do this kind of zoom with the, you know, the mountain appear very like big behind the subject. So it's something that I always liked. Like in The Lord of the Rings, originally you got a lot of this kind of shots, but they are mounted on helicopters, so on choppers. Like, so they turn around the subject, and when you do that with a very long focal length, you got a huge sense of space behind the subject. Obviously, we can't have an helicopter, but you get the idea. So it was very much inspired by that kind of shot. And yeah, we did this one. This one is, I think, the same. And yeah, for my part, there are less shots for my parts than there is for Victor, because we had so little time. I especially like this one. Like we weren't sure because it was a bit extreme, but again, the more extreme it is, the more I enjoy it. Yeah, it worked well, and yeah, I also like so this one. It's a thing that we are trying to do more and more. It's kind of it's like one long shot. So now we are doing that with a much better stabilization, but at the time we didn't add the stabilization, so it's all done handheld. So it's why it's kind of moving, very hard to move, because you have to walk through the fields that are not stable ground while holding the camera, which is very heavy. So Sylvain did a tremendous job on this shot. I really like the feeling. So yeah, you see the shot, it actually go all the way to the end, but I wanted to put Victor there as well, so I had to cut it in two parts. But you see, coming back just to what I said before during the mixing explanation, so it's really when I watch the video, I hear the audio with the video, that, you know, when you watch a video and you are like immersed in the art, you are not thinking about, okay, is there too much low mid or bass or thing like that. It just you take the emotion, and if there is too much low mid, it's like, okay, I will take it. It just walk towards the emotion. So I think it really works when watched with the images. So for Victor, I personally did most of the shots. And so it was much easier, because you see this kind of movements, since I know where how I will cut it and edit it in post-processing, I can do this kind of shots on the spot. Like where I do you know, movement that is very linked to the music, musical emotion, because I know the music by heart at this point. I spent so long on it. And so for Victor, yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Victor, good thing with Victor is that, contrary to me, he always plays the song in the same fashion. Like the bow is always in the same direction. So it makes the editing very simple, because the shot will basically flow into each other much easier if the bow is always the same. I got that problem sometime in the way I do things. This is my entrance. I knew right from the start that I wanted to make my entrance on this part. We use, for almost all our shots, we use a Pro Mist. So it's a filter that we put in front of our camera that kind of soften up and do it soften up the image, and it does this kind of you know, I need to highlight, like you see this kind of thing there. It does this kind of like glow, you know, like it's very important for kind of like we do everything with the Pro Mist most of the time. Very important. And so the costume, if you haven't noticed, it's the same as on Inuyasha, but I just added some parts because I really love that costume. For Victor, it's just something that we made kind of in a quick manner. But yeah, only other thing, we added some drones shots made by Sylvain, and yeah, so this was done with another camera. Yeah, so just about the color grade. a lot is to be said about the color grade. So for the color grade, a very important thing that I do, especially when we have this kind of outside sceneries, is that so the grade is fairly easy for Victor. Like it's really just base image is that, so it's a log, like it's flat image that the camera produces, and then you can add the color in post-production. And so standard image will look like okay, where is my so this will be the converted image, and so standard correction or color grade will be that, like it just the color, a very simple color wash, I would say. Like I think I did not even use you know, complex stuff like you know, like with these wheels. I just use the base primaries colors by just switching the tint to something much warmer. And curve, what I did with the curve was that to have that more lush and filmic filming, I know made sure for most of my production that it's not too bright. Like I prefer to have you know, the skies are not like you could have the sky, you know, in a much brighter brighter feeling. Like it could be much more bright, but I knew I wanted to keep things like that. So let me get the grade to its initial thing. But the most important thing I did, in my opinion, on this one was the vignette work. So it's a thing I do a lot, is that vignette will be this one. And you see it's like reworking by using you see this will be the first one, just pure vignette like that. Then another one, but slightly different. Then this one is just covering this part, and this one it's like the opposite of a vignette. It's like I put light back in the sky, and so it creates this kind of additional texture, you know, that makes the image more detached from reality. So I think there is that on almost every thing. Yeah, so flat image with a color grade, and then I add my vignette work, and a flat image will look like that. And maybe not on the close-up, because there is less work to do. But especially when I have like sceneries like that, you see the vignette work is all of that. This is the difference. It's like it's enormous. So it's yeah. Every time you see a shot of on my videos, probably there is some work like that. So especially every time it's like wide shot like this. Lot of vignette work. You see, it just adds some kind of light rays that is coming from my back. You know, like God rays. So it just creates more. I will call it. The goal is to create more separation from reality. It's the way I will call it. But yeah, basically the color grade was kind of easy. The only hard part was that there was a lot of shots, a lot of things to color grade, so it took a long time. But yeah, kind of easy, and always it's kind of the same thing, like a basic wash, a very not too bright curve work, and then some vignette and additional work like that. But yeah, it's I'm very happy about the result on this one, and I think I'm very happy also about the reception. The video is doing very well, so it's nice. Probably was one of the biggest and more complex projects we did, but it wasn't that terrible to work on. It was rather funny. Oh yeah, last thing maybe I can show you is I added something called eliott. So it's not the way it's supposed to be used, not at all. But you see this kind of red outline. Like, I don't know. It's not supposed to be used that way, but I mean, on top of film grain, you see this will be the image without this effect, and this will be with the effect. And so it had this kind of archaic feeling of texture that I really enjoy. Like again, it will it's not a technical sound thing to do. Like it's not technically recommended, but it's something that I just enjoy doing, so I just do it. So I did that on almost every shot. Especially, there is a shot of Victor that I really enjoy the feeling. I think it's, no, it's this one. Yeah, this one there. Yeah, so you can see the little, you see the difference here. Little, so this is with little bit of red, and I don't know, I just like the feeling, so just another weird thing. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. I said a lot already, so I'm probably going to in the future, when my connection will allow, I will probably do live stream of this kind of session where I explain things to how it's made, and yeah, hopefully you won't find it too hard to follow, because it's a long video with a lot of information. But as always, just tell me in the comments what you think of that, and yeah, I will see you. I have more Lord of the Rings coming very soon, so stay tuned, and I guess I'll see you on the channel. Bye bye.